So my name is Julian Rosser, and I'm Development Support Manager for Hub Cymru Africa. This is part of a series of workshops as part of a project that's been funded by the Waterloo Foundation, which is aiming at helping people to use digital tools for international development projects. We do have some ground rules just to go through quickly. The session will be recorded. So if you don't want to appear, then please turn off your camera so you won't be visible. The idea is that the workshop will be available then on YouTube for anybody who is not able to come along and attend. Please do participate in monitoring and evaluation. I will launch a couple of polls at the beginning and at the end to help us work out if we're doing a decent job here. We do encourage people to actively participate, but you're not required to. If you want to just have this on in the background while you're washing up or doing whatever, then please do feel free. If you have any questions, then please do raise your hand or put them in the chat box, and I will do my best to make sure that we come to them all and deal with them all. And just in case there's any background noise going on where you are, please do ensure that you're muted unless you're actively speaking. This is a safe space for minoritized people, so no form of abuse will be tolerated. We do encourage challenging and constructive conversation, but people's lived experiences are not up for debate. If you have any serious concerns and you need to make a safeguarding complaint after the event, then please visit the WCIA website, wcia.org.uk, and search for the whistleblowing policy. I'll give you a brief rundown of the agenda. So we're going on for about an hour and a half, doing introductions now. I will be doing a short interview with a short overview of some of the digital tools that are available to support collaboration. Then we'll have Giacomo giving us a case study of the work that's done by Bees for Development in this area. We'll have a bit of time then to share experiences and tips, not only to ask Giacomo questions, but also so everybody else can chip in and give their thoughts and their ideas, so we can support each other to come up with decent solutions to any problems that we've got. I'm going to talk a little bit about digital tools and power dynamics, some of the risks and some of the good practice that we can engage in to make best use of them. And then we'll have some reflections and conclusions, and we will be doing a closing survey just to see where everybody has got to. So broadly, the aims of the workshop are that participants are aware of the tools available to support their collaboration, that they know where to find more information and support, that you understand how the use of digital tools can reinforce or challenge inequalities, and so that participants are inspired by real-life examples and case studies to use digital tools. So it would be great if everybody could introduce themselves in the chat box. I see some people already are, which is great. Lovely. Okay, well done. Clearly people have been coming to several of these things. Be really good to see everybody introduce themselves in the chat box. Tell us a little bit about what you would like to get out of the event. And if you want to share links or information, then please do that. And we will compile the content of that box and send around the information and links that people have shared at some point a little bit after the event. Now, brilliant. So the idea is that we will do a quick poll just to start off, just to see where everybody is at the beginning of the event. So wonderful. So hopefully I have launched a poll and it should appear apparent to you. Have you seen it pop up in on your screen somewhere? Wonderful. Somebody has. Fantastic. Anybody having trouble finding it or seeing it? Brilliant. Okay, oh, that's very helpful. Good to see a good sort of spread of knowledge and understanding. So hello, Kathy's just joining us. Hiya. We are just doing a kind of a little opening poll, just to see where people are at the beginning of the session. I don't know if you can see that. I think people have stopped doing it. We've got about 66% of participants have managed to do that. So that's a good start. Wonderful. Okay, I think we will move on with that. And yep, okay, so a good spread all around in people's knowledge and experience in the area. What we're going to do to start with is just to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the tools that are available to support collaboration. And this comes from some work that Hub Cymru Africa did a couple of years ago, which was to talk to lots and lots of groups about their use of digital technology, what they're using, what works well, what doesn't work well. And so on the Hub Cymru Africa website, there is a section there entitled Digital Tools to Help with Your Work. I will share a specific link to that, but if you go to the homepage, you can go to the Get Support tab and work your way down there. You'll find information about all sorts of digital tools, and we split the whole thing into a variety of categories, including tools to collaborate and meet, tools to deliver training and education, log and manage information, tools to share videos, photos, and large files, tools to communicate, tools to engage, tools to learn about issues within digital development, and tools which you could use to get technical support and advice. Also tools to raise money online. And then there's a copy also there of the needs assessment that we did for use of digital tools by the international solidarity sector in Wales. And as I say, I will share a link to that page specifically because there is an awful lot of information, a lot of links. And if you're looking for something, then it's well worth having a little look through there just to see what's available. But what I'll do first is to give, we asked people what they thought were the best things that they were using. And so I'll give a little rattle through really some of the tools that people were using for different types of functions. And I think you'll all have opinions on some of these. Many of you will have used them before, and we'll have a little opportunity after we've heard from Giacomo to consider what you think of these. So for text-based chat, then most people came back and said that they use WhatsApp. I probably don't need to talk about it very much. WhatsApp is very widely used. It's just kind of a messaging and voice over internet service, which allows you to share messages, set up groups, and communicate with lots of people at the same time. IMO is a very similar app, which is used in large parts of Africa in preference to WhatsApp, but also could be worth investigating. For video meetings, obviously we have Zoom. We're all on Zoom now, and that's kind of become a bit of a go-to for lots of organisations, particularly since we all got locked inside for the pandemic. But also Microsoft Teams will do something very similar, and that offers chat video conferencing and also file storage and whiteboard collaboration. For collaboration project management, tools can be very useful. So a number of people came and said that they particularly use Teamwork, which allows users to collaborate on developing projects. So they can view timelines and allocate tasks. and there's a free version which you can use for small projects. Some people also said that they use Evernote, which is quite a flexible app that can be used online and offline, and does lots of other things as well. For discussion groups, a lot of people use Slack, which is a communications platform which offers lots of real-time chat. And so you can have chat rooms organized by topic, private groups, direct messaging. And if you want the very sophisticated version of Slack, then you will need to pay a little bit of money. But there are simple version which is free. And also a lot of people will just use WhatsApp for discussion groups. So file sharing and storing are also things that you may find very useful for collaboration. And there's a lot available in the Google Suite. So you can use a lot of the tools there for sharing files and information, also for project management using calendar, email, and a whole load of other things. And similarly, Microsoft Teams is quite popular for file sharing and storing. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail about those or go into any chat about them, because I thought that we could work any further conversation about what we think is particularly good or not good into some discussion after we've heard from Giacomo. So I went to Bees for Development as they're one of the the larger international solidarity organisations within Wales. They have partners in lots of different countries, and some of the work that they do can be quite complex. I thought they would be a really useful organisation to learn from in terms of how to collaborate online. So I would like to introduce Giacomo, and Giacomo Ciriello has very kindly agreed to come and tell us what it is that Bees for Development do. Giacomo, are you able to share your screen? Do I need to stop sharing screen to allow you to do that?
That's right.
Thank
you, Julian.
Let me
that should work.
Do that.
Does that work?
Fantastic.
Can all of you see that?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great.
Garish presentation.
It's very exciting stylistically, certainly.
So this is one of the first tools. First of all, so yes, I'm Giacomo. I have been working with Bees for Development for 3 years now as a project manager, and I also coordinated the courses here in the UK. And Bees for Development, one of the things that brought me to Bees for Development was using their website while I was a student at university. I was studying beekeeping projects, and I found a lot of interesting resources on the BFD website, but it was a very dated website. And the worst thing is that we had kind of lost ability to edit it ourselves. We always had to go to the media company who would put it up, and then they lost support for the platform they had built it on. So we were kind of in a bit of a pickle, and this was kind of beginning of 2020. And then, of course, COVID happened. And we saw this as a bit of an opportunity to get our digital presence and online presence sorted and just tidy up quite a few loose ends. And once you start with these things, you realize there's more and more you can do. So I'll just run you through some of the tools we use, and I guess I'll just be able to mention them and tell you about how we're doing, and then we'll take questions and see what happens. So this presentation I made with Canva, which is one of the tools that we've started using most recently, and which is used for design. So I just typed in, it has templates for various kinds of presentations, videos, flyers, cards, and we've been using this for all of our kind of fundraising designs, presentations, all sorts of things. And it's a really useful tool because all the design happens online. You don't need any technical knowledge like you do with Adobe Suite or other kind of professional programs. and it's just very intuitive, and it allows you to share and edit designs within a team. So especially with my colleagues here in the UK, but also with my colleagues in Ghana, we've worked on some presentations together, and we've used this, and we found this to be quite a nice tool. So this is just some of the stuff we use on a daily basis, and it'll be a bit of a whistle-stop tour of these applications, what I'm going to be providing today. And I guess rather than have all PowerPoint side, I can actually show you these tools on my browser. And you can see things that I use on a daily basis. I just have as bookmarks on my browser, so they're just here, easy for me to click on. So let's start with Pibigo, which is one of the first databases, cloud-based databases that we started using, and it's for images. We somehow managed to wrangle a free account on this platform, which is actually quite expensive for commercial users. But one thing to mention is that as a not-for-profit, a lot of the software providers and online service providers offer discounts. And even if they don't do so outwardly, you can probably approach them and ask them. And there's always more leeway for our kinds of organization. So this is a space that we use to store and organize our images. It's not the most user-friendly platform for this purpose, but it is quite good, and it helps. For example, like I know this beneficiary in Ethiopia, I know we've got good pictures of her. I can write her name and it pulls it up. I can download it in various sizes. We can organize it by keywords. So we've luckily had a volunteer, Anna, who's done an amazing job of going through images that our partners send us and putting keywords on them and uploading them online, which is quite a cumbersome process. So this is kind of a useful tool that we use on a daily basis in order to access our library of images. When it comes to file sharing, we use SharePoint a lot. So this is part of kind of the Microsoft Office suite. And we have various sites. So it took us a little while to figure out how to use SharePoint effectively so that we have access to shared folders with our partners, but they don't necessarily have to see all the shared folders of every other partner. So we've made different sites, and we have kind of our own site, which is the BFD one. And to be honest, we mostly just use the documents library. So it's just as if it was a Windows Explorer window, and you just have your files all organized in here. And you'll need to develop some protocols as an organization of where do you file things, and probably then use one of the instant messaging services to constantly ask your colleagues, where did you put this? Where did you put that? But then we have sites for our partners as well, which again, same sort of thing. We just really use the documents, even though there's a whole set of other functionalities. And for the most part, this is what we use to share documents and video files. When we want to share video outside of the organization, you could do it via SharePoint, but people are more familiar with WeTransfer. So we use that quite a bit. Then Slack and WhatsApp. We use that a lot. Slack mostly between us and our partners. WhatsApp a lot with beneficiaries as well, and people we've kind of met in the field, We stay in touch. They send us pictures, and we also have some groups. For example, we've been training some honey collection coordinators in Ghana this year. So people who are facilitating harvesting and kind of consolidation of quantities of honey in their community. And we have a group for them, and we communicate with them via that group, and they send us, for example, updates of what's in flower in that season that bees are foraging on. So it's also becomes a kind of data collection tool. And the great thing about WhatsApp is that people are using it anyways. So we found that, you add system on system on system, but at some point you get to a point where you have too many systems and it's kind of too much work keeping track of all the information coming from different sources. So if you can do something with a tool that you're already using, it's much more likely to work than introducing a new tool. And this is something we've kind of learned with experience. So all of these, Canva, SharePoint, Beeweego, we have it for free. I don't know how, don't ask me how. But we do, if we were kind of getting it, but we have it with reduced functionality. I think we have an older version. But otherwise it's quite expensive, but you can find other, we are actually not too happy with, it's not very user-friendly platform. So we're free and we're kind of committed because we've uploaded a library with keywords, and there's kind of a sunk investment in there. But if we could start again, we'd probably look at other options for photos. And Slack also free for nonprofits. WhatsApp, of course, free. The whole Microsoft Office suite for nonprofits, it's amazing value in terms of kind of everything you get for a standard business license. And we're finding Canva is also amazing value in terms of us being able to do designs that we would otherwise have to ask someone else externally to do. So these are all tools that we're definitely going to continue using. Some of them we're happier to be stuck with than others, but there we go. Zoom, again, the kind of COVID era digital tool, it's been amazing for us how many things we've done with it. We've run videography courses for partners, we've run webinars, we've run fundraising events. We use it on a daily basis for our meetings and for meeting people outside the organization. We are finding that other providers have kind of caught up, like Microsoft Teams. The first times I tried using it on my laptop, it felt like it was going to take off and leave the room. While now it works seamlessly. So I don't know if we're going to keep using Zoom and paying for a service that we have for free with other subscriptions, like with Microsoft Teams. So I have a feeling the days of Zoom for us are numbered. Kobo Toolbox is amazing. Like, I cannot tell you how much I love Kobo Toolbox. This is maybe the less known one of these applications, and it's specifically designed for humanitarian and development organizations, and it's a data collection tool, which means you can develop forms, develop questionnaires, and they are available online. So for every questionnaire you get a link that works online and offline. So once you've loaded this in your browser, it will stay loaded and you can fill it in and submit it even offline, which is key. Like, all our beneficiaries, all our work happens in rural areas where there's hardly any mobile network coverage. And offline functionalities for cloud-based databases are things that if you were going for like commercial options, you'd be looking at kind of development costs. If you were developing your own native app, of upwards of $200,000. And a lot of commercial solutions for things like traceability, for example, probably like 13,000, 14,000 a year for kind of entry level apps. Well, we have built a digital like traceability and value chain management system just with Kobo Toolbox and Google Sheets that does things that would have otherwise cost us probably like £40,000 in the first year, and then £10,000 for every year after that if we'd gone for commercial solutions. And so we use Kobo Toolbox for all our monitoring and evaluation, surveys, beneficiary feedback form, registering beneficiaries. We use it to manage honey trade, where we're doing honey trade in terms of registering beekeepers, keeping track of buckets we've distributed to them, and quality control processes. So within these forms, we've put in all the things that our honey collection coordinators should be checking in the honey before they accept honey and put it in the warehouse. And then it all goes into a central database, so the person back at the processing center can check the buckets when they arrive and release payment with mobile money directly to the beekeepers. So we've done away with using cash, which is extremely risky in this whole process. And Kobo Toolbox is 100% free for most, like, unless you're collecting huge amounts of data. And it's very user friendly. It takes a little bit of getting used to and a bit of training, because then there's, so this is the web end, then there's a native app on Android devices. And so you need to train whoever is collecting that, filling out these forms in the field for you, on how to keep the app updated, how to make sure submissions are consistent. But yes, I mean, that we could talk for an hour and a half just about Kobo Toolbox. Really amazing tool, what it allows you to do. And Monday, I can't say much about Monday. We've only started using it very recently. It's a project management tool. So you can create various kind of Gantt chart style of things. The main thing we're using it for now is fundraising applications. When are they due? Who is responsible for taking them forward? And so on and so forth. Free for nonprofits. Again, huge functionality to explore. But I can't tell you much about it because, again, it's one of those many tools, and you get to a point where I can kind of do these things with my agenda, and it's the only thing that keeps me managing to use a pen every once in a while. So let's stick to that for now. Salesforce, that's wrong, not meeting the workshop. It's a CRM, and it's again free for nonprofits. This is where we keep all our contacts. It's our address book, essentially. But it's a lot more than an address book, because to each contact, you can also assign, it's called opportunities. So any contact you have with them, we use it both as a kind of donor oriented tool. So keeping track of who are our supporters, donations they make, whether they come on our beekeeping courses in the UK, and you can also link it with your Outlook and upload emails from people to the contacts, so everyone in our organization can know the full conversation that we as an organization have had with a contact. Yeah, like invaluable tool, Salesforce. I don't know how we would manage without Salesforce. We use it for everything. And more recently, with funding from Bosch Government, from this platform hub Cymru, we have developed a monitoring, evaluation, and learning system that scavenges, that is based on the Kobo toolbox alongside Salesforce. So we have built an environment in Salesforce where we can create projects, assign beneficiaries to projects, assign indicators to projects and to beneficiaries and milestones, and kind of keep track of what's happening in each project by quite a complex system which is kind of managed through this website which we've developed. In this website, you have a list of reporting toolkits, kind of standard beneficiary registration forms, activity forms, feedback forms that our beneficiaries can access all in one place with guidance on how to do what. And then all these forms we take from Kobo, and they're mapped onto the database that we have built in Salesforce. So we can upload these forms from Kobo into Salesforce, and that makes it so that all of us have project information in one place. Having said all of that, this is something we have developed this year, and just now we are starting to use it to train our partners, to kind of get buy-in, because when you make a system that has so many moving parts, then it's a lot of work making it. It's a whole lot more work getting everyone to use it. So we're kind of at the beginning of this journey, but we have found that with just SharePoint, it's hard for anyone who doesn't know the story of a project to quickly see the project at a glance. And this is what we're trying to achieve with this tool, and hopefully it will work. So that's kind of it. As you can see, this is kind of the mood at the minute with the MEL system is, oh my God, we've got so much more work before this becomes a useful tool ahead of us. But fingers crossed we will. Monday is kind of gathering cobwebs a bit, and we'll see if it can be picked up by, because it was mainly something that, and this is another, I guess, tip that is cross-cutting of these applications, is that often there's one person in a small organization, because we're also a small organization, that really invests time in understanding a platform. And then it's up to that person to get everyone else on board as well. And if that somehow gets interrupted because the person moves to another job, or because no one else wants to deal with a project management platform, or for any other reason, then you don't get buy-in. And getting buy-in, especially from partners, is the biggest challenge when it comes to these digital tools for collaboration, and probably something that Julian will now talk about in terms of access and the inequalities that also arise when you're trying to change things up.
Thank you. That was really helpful. That was almost exactly on time, which is pretty impressive as well, to pack so much in. So that was really useful. What I'd like to see first, if anybody has got any questions, immediately following or related to the things that Giacomo has been talking about. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, Wendy Wendy would like to know a bit more about the Kobo Toolbox, and you are clearly, Giacomo, a #1 fan. So Wendy, are there any particular questions or any thoughts that you've got or that you'd like to know more about?
No, just I came across it the other day and I thought, oh, that looks good. But, you know, ploughing in from scratch, it's quite difficult to exactly see how you're going to go about using it. But I'm interested to hear how much Giacomo gets out of using it.
Yeah, we get a whole lot using it in terms of, I mean, again, going back to my student days, I remember doing research in Ghana and going to a photocopier to print out questionnaires and kind of designing questionnaires in Word, and then coming back from the field and going through these questionnaires that had been sweated on, dusted, scribbled on, and like trying to make any sense of those, and other people had filled them out, and it was just so painful. And Kobo Toolbox just resolves all of that. Like, you develop your form, you test your form, everyone fills out the same, it all goes in one place, it's already in a spreadsheet, and so super useful for collecting beneficiary data and gathering insights if you want to do a baseline survey and then an end of project survey. There's a lot of things that you need to already be in the mind frame of survey design and how to design a survey in a way that you can identify, for example, a beneficiary from when 3 years have elapsed between Form 1 and Form 2, and all these things, and make it so that you don't absolutely exhaust the patience of the person asking the question and the person answering the question. So there's all those things that are common to any survey tool. But what makes Kobo unique is offline capabilities. The level of permissions you can give to all the different users, so they can go back and change something if they realize that something needs to be changed, but only on their forms that they have submitted and not on everyone else that has submitted forms, if you have a team of people collecting data at the same time. And yeah, the possibilities are endless. Like, as I was saying, we've developed this traceability system for buying honeycomb in Ghana, and it's amazing the money it has saved us, and you're empowered. I don't need to go to someone else to change this app to make it work for me. I can go in there, I can make the changes. My colleague Isaac in Ghana, if he realizes that something is not working or we want to change a quality control parameter, he can go in there and change it. Yeah, and the fact that it's just been developed and put out there for free, there's a huge community in the forums of people kind of helping you out to solve any issues. I think it was developed by a team in Harvard.
Okay, and Howard was wondering what percentage of your users are online, of your beneficiaries or people that you're working with.
So, in terms of Kobo,
I think at all.
In terms of anything, to be honest, most of our schools are not online. And whereas I'm quite excited by what you do, I think it would be a big challenge for us.
So, in terms of Kobo Toolbox, it's not really it's not the beneficiaries who are using the tool. It's our partners, so our field staff of our partners. So we work in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, in Ethiopia, and in India,
right,
and in Uganda, with local NGOs who have field officers, I suppose, field staff. Not a lot. Like, for example, in Ghana, there's 2 people really who are on the field all the time, and they use Kobo Toolbox as a matter of kind of their daily work to collect information from beneficiaries. In terms of direct contact with beneficiaries, I think WhatsApp is the one mainly. And it's very direct, and you need to be the kind of person who is, you know, I just give out my number, people knowing that I will be absolutely harassed for the rest of my life by them. But that's kind of fine. It's part of the game. Yeah, and often maybe it's, you know, the younger daughter or son in the family. You meet the father or the mother or the uncle, and they don't know how to use a smartphone, but they take your number, and then you get contact from someone else in the family saying, mother sends the condolences for the Queen passing away, or something like that, and you have a bit of a chat.
Okay. Are there any other questions that people have got, kind of off the back of Giacomo's presentation, looking at any of the other tools that he's been talking about, or indeed using Kobo? No. Okay. Looks like you've answered pretty much everything there, Giacomo. So thank you very much for that. But please do hang around, because the other thing that I wanted to come to now is just to see what other questions people have got, or if you have got issues that you would like to talk about, because there's a number of different people here who've got different experiences, have used different tools in different ways. So it would be great to see if anybody's got any questions or any concerns or anything that they would like to talk about more. And if you don't, then I can start wanging on about some other things. But this is a great moment to do that if you do. No. Okay. All looking fairly calm. So what I will do is crack on with where we are. So thank you for that, Giacomo. We've done questions. We've given you a chance to ask any further questions about digital tools for collaboration. I mean, please do, if something does strike you in the next few minutes, then please do. If somebody's put something in chat, oh, it's a thank you. Okay, jolly good. So yes, thank you very much for that. Now let's see. What I would like to do now is to, having talked a bit about some of the practical things that are available, how to use them. I'd also like to talk about some of the dangers, because one of the things that you see often when new technology is introduced into a situation is that while it may have the power to relieve inequalities and to make for a more just and more equal world, that actually new technology can exacerbate inequalities, not only between countries, but also within countries and within communities. So if you introduce a new asset to a community, then it may well be that that will be exploited by those people who already have. Dina. Okay, we'll try and come back to your question, I think, Dina, in a minute, because what I would like to do is just to, and I don't think there's any need to put people into groups, as there are not that many of us. But I wanted to consider how the use of digital tools for collaboration could reinforce inequalities within the communities that we are trying to support. So there's a risk, I suppose, also that if you don't put people in small groups, that actually nobody's going to say anything. But we'll just have to suck up that risk and see if anybody's got any thoughts on the ways that that could happen, and the risks that there are of that happening. And if nobody has any thoughts, then I may start coming to people to ask questions, particularly. Wonderful. Wendy, it seems that you're keen to go.
I'm going to jump in first of all and say we noticed with introducing computers that there can be a tendency for the boys who already have advantages over the girl pupils jumping in and monopolizing things. I know this has been experienced in the UK as well, that you have to think carefully about how you group pupils perhaps in using technology to make sure that girls are not disadvantaged.
Okay, yep, thank you. And do you see, it's interesting, do you see similar issues rising with teachers even?
Yes, I think teachers tend to be a little bit, the ones who have the skills already tend to be a little bit protective of them sometimes, rather than, their knowledge is power in a way. So quite keen to share knowledge with as wide a group of teachers as possible, because otherwise it becomes like the secret art of the few, doesn't it?
It also is, it's caused us to register all the equipment that we give to schools, particularly large batteries, with the DEBS, the Department of Education Board Secretary, so that it's officially part of the school, not for an individual. I think that's quite important.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Dina.
I was going to say, the people that we work with, there's a cost to making phone calls, although WhatsApp is free. And I'm wondering if there's a cost to people in country using Kobo toolbox. And also there's the problem of charging phones. You know, people might have mobile phones, but the minute they get near an office or a plug, they're charging it because the phones aren't charged.
Yep.
So that's an inequality.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Okay. No, that's an important point. That and well, I'll come to talk about that in a little bit. Actually, some of the electricity and some of those issues. And we did talk about some of these things also when in the first workshop of this series, which is on YouTube actually, which is getting communities online, looking at some of the the difficulties that people have getting online. But we will come back to some of those. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the potential and the danger of introducing new technology to exacerbate inequalities or other problems within communities?
I think it's really important to provide training for any technology that you do put in. I know that organizations which haven't done that, especially with things like energy, solar panels, batteries and what have you, without the necessary training, then very often these things can either be destroyed or are not used effectively.
Yep.
So training is important.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Cecilia, are you still with us? Do you have any thoughts on this? Because I know you've been working on this issue, particularly in Kenya.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and I'm with you at the bedrock, because some of these tools, in fact, most of them, I'm hearing about them the first time. So I don't know how it works. I don't know how I get trained to know. And apart from WhatsApp, we use WhatsApp, we use Zoom, we use messaging, we take pictures, and we use the text messages. But these others that you're talking about, they are completely new to me.
Okay. Giacomo, it would be interesting to see from you how accessible you think some of these things are to practitioners in Africa. I mean, clearly you're in a pretty well-resourced environment in Monmouth, in leafy Monmouth. But do you think that some of these are quite accessible and quite easy to be using from Kenya, for example, or are some of them a little bit more, a little bit more reserved?
I think that there's definitely a barrier to access when it comes to data use and access, especially in rural areas. And I find that when I'm working with colleagues in Ghana, I mean, the person who is running our honey processing center, who is using this traceability system, this is the first year he has a laptop. He's never used a computer in his life. He is an amazing beekeeper, but that's just not part of his skill set, or he didn't have these opportunities growing up of using this technology. And it's kind of amazing how much he's picked up in a year. But as you mentioned, that's what has enabled that is me spending hours working with him, us providing a laptop. And I should have premised that all of these tools that we're using with partners, we're using in a professional capacity. Like the field staff are people who are employed by local NGOs, and who use these as professional tools. That said, there is nothing that stops you from using Kobo Toolbox if you have a smartphone or a laptop, and you know how to use them. If you're using WhatsApp already, there is nothing that will stop you using that particular service. And a lot of these applications I mentioned are free if you are a registered organization, so not as an individual.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's really helpful. So let me pick up then. To think about really inequalities, the potential for the kind of non-thoughtful introduction of digital tools sometimes to miss out people, and what we've seen and what we is well documented in research around the world is that people who are missing out from the benefits of introduction of new technology generally, but particularly thinking about digital technology, will be poor people, often will be women and girls, will be people with disabilities, and also people in minority ethnic and linguistic groups in the countries and the communities in which you're working, we did some research ourselves looking at Hub Cymru Africa partners of organisations that are working in Wales, and the main barriers that we saw to people getting online were around the availability of data. Can you get a signal at all in a number of places? Also then the cost of data, a lack of hardware, a lack of expertise, the availability or cost of electricity, and also in some areas government control or taxation, which restricted people's access to the internet. And some interesting work, which I think I would encourage anybody who is undertaking these sorts of projects where they're trying to engage people in African communities in digital work, is looking at the digital divide is not binary. And it was a article which I will share a link to, looking at why it is that people are not able to make decent use of the internet, and that it's not enough that somebody has theoretical access to the internet. And you can look at statistics and say, well, that this proportion of the population is able to access the internet, but their ability to make the use of it depends on several factors. And I would always encourage people to consider those 5 A's of technology access when they're trying to support communities using digital technology. And the first is the question of availability. To whom is this technology available? To whom is it unavailable? Affordability. Can people afford to use it? Can people actually afford to use it, to get the electricity, to get online, to use the data? Who is aware of the technology and these tools that you are introducing and that you're trying to make the best of? And I think this comes back to Howard's point around abilities. Who has the digital literacy to make use of these technologies? And then agency as well. Even if somebody has got the availability and the affordability, do they feel that they have the power to make use of these things within their household, within their community, within their organization? And so agency is also very important. And I'll share the link to that so that you can have a look, and there's a lot of that stuff that's available online. And I think also that we need to consider the dangers of introducing technology to any setting or circumstance, and that there's a lot of work being done looking also at the dangers that women face online, of gender-based violence and harassment happening, bullying. Online bullying is becoming rife around the world and is something that you need to consider. Access to pornography, access to misinformation and sharing of misinformation are serious issues to take into account. And also it's the fact that computer waste can be a problem, and that while there are some good projects sending secondhand computer technology to Africa, there is also an awful lot of rubbish being sent, which accrues and becomes a massive pollution problem in Africa rather than being a useful opportunity. So I wanted to get a sense, and I think Howard has started this classic Howard of answering the next question along. Really, I was what are the dangers, and Howard said, well, training and ensuring people are trained. I think I'd like to think about what it is that we can do to ensure that the use of digital tools and that the use of these things for collaboration doesn't reinforce inequalities and doesn't do other sorts of harm. And brilliant, thank you for that, Giacomo, on data protection. So Howard, you've already answered this question. Do you have any other thoughts on the things that we can be doing, the positive things that we can be doing to avoid our good intentions leading to further harm?
Yes, I do. We have established an excellent relationship with the Debs in the area we're working, the Department of Education Board Secretary, and pretty much everything we do gets her seal of approval before we do it. That is very useful. She's a very trustworthy person. She feels we're trustworthy, and using her as a guide means that I can think of occasions when she's pointed out that someone that we're using is probably not the best person to use. I guess it's about trust, isn't it? It's a difficult one. When we visit ourselves, then we tend to organize training sessions, one-to-one training sessions. All this, of course, had a nightmare of a time with COVID, but it's a little bit more relaxed now. We've also established good links with an organization, it's a non-government organization, but they seem to be very closely linked with government. That is the Association for Quality Education in Zambia. And using those officers, we can get a feel for whether what we're doing is not inappropriate, but could be better done. So it definitely partners in the country you're working in is important. In terms of the things you were saying, like bullying and online pornography, online problems, there is an organization called OpenDNS, which filters pretty much anything you want it to filter. It is free. There are paid for solutions for large organizations, but we set up a link to their servers on all the routers we use, and that means that you can they monitor violence, especially against women, but the use of weapons, political organizations which are dubious. So I would recommend opendns.org. They would, if you install their link to the internet via them, things are much better. Normally, when you connect to the internet, your internet service provider gives you access to the servers that are on the internet. And they do this by translating things like bbc.co.uk to a number which we can use. Well, OpenDNS looks at the URL you're using, bbc.co.uk, and they determine whether that's safe or not. So there are things like NetNanny, but I think OpenDNS does a pretty good job of filtering out inappropriate material. When I was teaching, that's what we used in that school too, because Monmouthshire County Council at the time didn't have much of an idea how to stop anything. But yeah, so that's good for online. So I guess summing up, it's working with trusted partners, the government trust that you trust, and the schools trust. With us, that's the Department of Education Board Secretary, and then working with organisations that you've checked yourself, that they are not rather dodgy places.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Thank you, Howard. No, that's really, really helpful. Some really useful points there. Does anybody else have any thoughts or ideas on how we can go around, avoiding doing more harm than good, and avoiding things that would entrench inequality rather than addressing it? No? Okay, jolly good. Catherine, welcome. Hello. I'm glad to see that you've been making good use of the chat box. Have you got a decent answer to your question, or are there any further things that you'd like to raise?
No, that's really helpful. And I just had a quick look at your link. I think I need to dig into that. And I'm completely hopeless at any of this, but we have now got a project manager for a couple of hours a week. So I'm gonna pass all this on to her, and she's the one who's setting up our team's kind of workplace, and going to be using that for meetings soon. So thank you. I don't have a question because I'm too stupid to know what to ask, but I'm hopeful that I've got somebody who will come back with intelligent questions.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Lovely. Well, let me just carry on. We're making excellent time, which is very helpful. So that's very nice. So I'll just say a few things, to conclude this area, right? I think the important thing is to be aware of the risks and the dangers, and to consider them within the environment in which you're working and the organisation within which you're working. But it is important to consider that introduction of new technologies and new techniques can lead to problems as well as helping out. It may be useful to use gender equality and social inclusion tool. That's something that you could use to consider who you're working with, how they relate to each other, how they relate in terms of power and privilege, so that you can consider those things when you design your project to support work that would lessen inequality. Very important, I think, to consider safeguarding, and almost everybody who's got a grant anyway would have safeguarding policies, because they have to have policies. I think it's really important to not just have a policy, but to implement that policy and to be reviewing it, and to be ensuring that it's a real living thing, to avoid the danger of doing harm, and if harm is being done, to ensure that there are processes in place by which it can be identified and challenged. And then to come back to this was around Dina's question around data protection and the risk of data protection being a problem with Salesforce or almost any online database that you might be using. That again, you need to have the policy and you need to implement that policy. And if you're collecting and storing information about people, then you need to consider why you're storing it, if you are storing it, if you need to store it, and then think about how is it being stored. Do the people that you're storing information about know that you're storing it, and do they consent to that? And again, I think this is one of those issues where things like privacy and data protection are very keenly observed within the UK, but sometimes people feel that these things don't apply when you're working in Africa. And I think it's very important that we consider that people in Africa should have the same rights as people in the UK, to know what information you're gathering and storing about them, and to have some control over that as well. Now, I've added this slide as well because it's important. Obviously, a lot of people will be looking for funding to implement projects. I just wanted to flag up that there are grants available from the Welsh Government, which are managed by WCVA. So they're not called Wales for Africa grants anymore. I'm sorry, they're called Wales and Africa grants. But that's Welsh Government money. The grant scheme is open at the moment. Actually, they're accepting applications up until the 4th of November. Sometimes Hub Cymru Africa has money available to put into grant schemes. I'm afraid we don't at the moment, but it's worth keeping an eye out just in case something emerges. And also the British and Foreign School Society does give grants for education work. But also you can look at the Bond website, which will give you a strong rundown of funding that's available to be running projects. And also Hub Cymru Africa, we work with other organisations in the UK to compile a list of funding opportunities that you could be applying for, and that list is updated. I think it's every month that list is updated, so it is current and it's worth going back to and having a look at. Even if you had a look at it 3 months ago and you didn't see anything, then there could be more available there as well. So I've given myself a big handy reminder there to launch a final poll, as we are, I think we're just about at the end of what's going on. We'll see while we're doing polling, if you've got any more questions, any more thoughts, any reflections, then that would be great. But it would be really good if people could, let's have a look, if I can, there's that poll. If I can launch the end poll, if you could spend a couple of minutes just having a quick trot. There's only 7 questions, but we're not asking you to write any essays, but it would be really helpful if you could look over those polling questions so we get a sense of how well we've done in this past hour or so in helping you to develop those skills, understanding, knowledge of these topic areas. Also gives a very interesting indication of who's still awake when we've got so many black screens. We're doing things in the evening. I have to admit that I'm not getting a strong sense that, oh, wonderful, somebody's awake. Okay. So yes, it would be good if you could have a look at the questions there and fill in the poll. We'll see if we have any. We have another thank you and some more helpful comments there. Some more suggestions from Howard about free and paid for filtering.
Can I make one last remark, Julian?
Please do.
Linking to what Catherine said, I think, Catherine, you said that you were too stupid to understand these tools for collaboration. And
Catherine is a doctor, by the way, but
yeah. And I mean, it's a common thing that I see a lot of people being put off by new digital tools and computers and so on and so forth. And I think it's a bit of a cop-out almost. Like, I don't like spending time trying to figure out how these things work. It can be very frustrating. But if you do have a computer and an internet connection, you can usually find a solution. There's always someone who can help with these things. So I guess what I want to say is, don't feel like it's an insurmountable barrier if when you start using something it makes you feel silly. That's kind of where you're learning, really. So that feeling of, oh my god, I'm out of my depth, is actually something to treasure almost, I think. And because I've had to push against it a lot myself.
yes.
Thank you. I'll come back to that. You're absolutely right, Giacomo. I stand corrected. That's I was trying to disguise the fact that it's outside my comfort zone and I just get bored too quickly, I think. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary to get our heads around this, and we do it in the rest of our lives, don't we? We use it for all sorts of other things. If you really want to, you get your head around it. You're right.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much, Giacomo, for helping out so much. Really, really useful thoughts, really helpful presentation. And thank you, everybody else, for coming along and participating so willingly. I'm delighted to be finishing 8 minutes before our scheduled end time, but I think we'll probably go, won't we? We get a bit of time for a cup of tea or maybe a beer. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you all soon. I'll see some of you soon anyway. Thank you. Bye bye.